Welcome back, everybody. And I would now like to welcome my favorite colleague with a rhyming name, Serena Frisina. I just love saying it. I think we should have you on as a guest every week so we can introduce you, Serena. But Serena, actually, just like Niall, is a former admissions officer at Lewis and Clark College. Serena, did you and Niall work together?
We did,
I
yes.
didn't even know that. How exciting. We have we've got a large Lewis and Clark and all of Portland contingent. We've got quite a few former Reed admissions officers, and Lewis and Clark now I think is catching up. Historically, it's been a competition between those of us who worked at Tufts University, like I did, and Barnard College. We had quite a contingent from those two, but you folks from Portland are really catching up with us now. But so glad to have you here, Serena. And Neil kind of queued us up, but we are going to be talking about college visits today. The joys of college visits, I believe, is the official segment title. And I know I've heard you actually on a previous episode talking about your college search process. And I know you enjoyed lots of college visits, Serena. Did you visit like 100 schools when you were
It
looking for
was it
colleges?
was a silly amount. And we like definitely compromise, like some of it was walkthroughs. We totally made a
Yeah.
game of it. I do not recommend like you need to visit hundreds of schools. And to clarify, I only applied to 9 schools. But I
Perfect.
was very sure in my decisions because I had visited tons and tons and tons of places. So
That's fantastic. And I'm so glad that that is exactly in line with Niall's recommendation of applying to 7 to 10 schools. And I don't think you knew Niall then, but you absolutely followed his recommendation. So that's perfect. So thinking about those visits, when exactly should students and families start visiting colleges? Is freshman year of high school too early? If you're already a senior, is it too late? When do the visits come into this process?
yeah, I think so. The gold standard, I would say, is junior year. Sometime during junior year, probably spring of junior year into fall of senior year. That's like the 6 month gold standard.
Yeah.
However, like part of me says don't move this earlier, like stop stressing. And
Yes.
also, like if you're traveling to a new place, if you're visiting family across the country freshman year of high school, it doesn't hurt to visit earlier. So
Mhm.
there's not really a wrong time to visit. Maybe you went somewhere in middle school and you're like, I loved that place, and like that stays in your mind.
Yeah.
But you don't need to push it earlier. And I think there's kind of two trains of thought. Like, should I visit before I've gone through the application process or after I've gone through the application process? And I see it both ways. For me, like, I don't know that I could apply to school, like to schools without seeing a place and like having an
Mhm.
idea of where I would be living. On
Yeah.
the other hand, I recently worked with a student who was like, she gets really attached to things. Like she described herself like this. I'm not putting that on her, but she gets really attached to, and so her thought was, if I go to this place and I fall in love and I'm denied, that's going to ruin me. Like I will be
Mm,
so upset and I'll feel like
yeah.
I had to go there and I can't, and now it's out of my hands. And she was applying to highly selective schools, so that was an option for
Good.
her that she wouldn't get admitted.
Yeah.
So I think if you know you have some of those commitment, I won't call them issues, but commitment concerns,
Yeah.
then you could wait until after you've been admitted, and there isn't harm in that either.
Totally. And so we just talked about when you should visit. How about the why of it? What is the point of these visits? I'll be the devil's advocate. Don't they, every school they've got classrooms and a student union and a gym. Aren't they all kind of the same? What differences are you seeing when you actually visit colleges?
Yeah, great question. So I think early on, visiting colleges is just kind of figuring out likes and dislikes. It's
Okay.
like sitting in cars and realizing, oh my gosh, I love that this car has heated seat warmers, or I really like the space or the sunroof or whatever it is. You're just figuring that out, kind of what you like and don't like. So visiting is kind of the honestly kind of in a way a lazy way to do it, because you don't have to do research, you don't have to sit online, you don't have to score a website to figure out what you're looking for, but you can sort of just gauge that by looking around, having feelings about where you are.
Mm-hmm.
um, and it also then can be a solidifying decision. You typically don't, again, you don't make any big decisions without experiencing something, right? Like probably don't buy a house sight unseen or buy a car without test driving it.
Right.
So that why is just having more exposure, I think.
That makes a lot of sense. And what should you actually see on a college visit?
Yeah, I think the campus tour is great and typically covers everything they want you to see. And I don't mean that in like a, oh, they're hiding something, but more so just it covers everything that they want to highlight and that they feel is important, which I think is a really valuable, if they're covering things that you're like, why am I looking at this? Then
Mhm.
maybe that's not the right place for you.
Yeah.
Um, After the tour or before the tour, I think if there's anything that any place you'll be spending a lot of time. Obviously, that could be a library. If you are an athlete, that could be the student athlete
Mm.
facilities.
Yeah.
If you just like going to the gym, even if you're not an athlete, checking out the gym. There may be limits to what you see. Often you're not allowed in residence halls or there's restrictions around that. And I get that that's frustrating. You want to see where you might be living. And also, you have to recognize that students live there. So you're just invading somebody's space and home, and
Yeah.
that's not always appropriate. So, if you can see a residence hall, great. If you have any friends or know anybody, friend of a friend, relative, etc., that lives on the college campus, definitely poke around and see if you can walk through their residence hall. Labs. I think coffee shops are a really cool place to visit.
Oh, you're speaking my language now, Serena.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have my coffee in hand,
Right.
but when in
Cheers.
doubt, yes, love it. Just spending a few minutes in the coffee shop, grabbing your beverage of choice, listening to conversations, eavesdropping. That's not really a speak, but like a all senses, listen, look, just gauging what people are talking and who's there. Like, are there professors there? Are there students there? Like, who goes to this local coffee shop?
Yeah.
And then not on campus, but exploring the area around the campus can be really great. And asking the tour guide, like, what's your favorite restaurant close by? Or, what do you do when you get off campus? Where do you go? That can
Mm,
be, I think, a good way to gauge what the school's all about.
totally. And that brings up a good point of when you ask the tour guide questions, should you believe them? You mentioned, they're going to show you the things they want you to see. So can you actually trust the information that you receive on a college visit, or are they going to make things try to sound better than they actually are?
That's a great question. And a little bit of background in my 10 years or so at Lewis and Clark, I trained our tour guides. I was a tour guide, and then I trained our tour guides and managed the visit program. And there's definitely a balance between training tour guides to talk about things that are important that you need to have covered for whatever reason. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they don't always understand that parents might want to hear about some aspect of the experience. So there is some level of, hey, you all need to talk about this. But most tour guides aren't scripted, they are authentic. Yes, they are the most enthusiastic. It's kind of like reviews, like Yelp reviews. You see the best and the worst. Tour guides are like, they love the school, they love the experience. It's probably not just a work study job. But I also think that when a tour guide says something that you disagree with, they probably don't think they're saying something bad. So, for example,
Mm.
if the tour guide says it's super competitive here, they think that's a good thing. Obviously, you can tell by my tone of voice, I disagree. But they like the competition at that school. And that might be a deciding factor for you. Like,
Yeah.
well, that's great. And I visited plenty of places where they like totally were thrilled about how competitive and how selective the school was. And like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it drives me to work harder. And like for me, that's horrible. Like, and then I'd go on tours where they talk about like how collaborative and everybody loves each other and it's
Yeah.
great. And like, that's what I wanted. My best friend's the opposite. Like she's all about the competition. So like for her, the collaborative schools were like, oh, gross. So like I think even if it sounds, yes, they are more positive than every single student experience. And also, the things that they highlight are things that they genuinely think are good things. So I think you can take those with authenticity. And there's also no point in lying. Like, then you're going to transfer out, and that doesn't do.
Right.
So, like, they don't, there's no push to get you to go to that school. It is, here's our experience, take it or leave it. So yes, you can trust your tour guide.
Completely. Yeah. And I will say the one thing, money is my specialty, the college finance. And the one thing I will say to take with a little bit of a grain of salt, because I hear it all the time from families, is, well, they told me when I visited this college that they have plenty of financial aid and I didn't have to worry about it. And it's likely accurate that they have got plenty of financial aid, but they don't know at that point when you're visiting what your financial circumstances are, that you are the one that's going to receive the financial aid. So that's something you just have to be a little bit careful of. Every college does have financial aid, but they don't know your circumstances and if you are going to, how much of it you're going to receive, nor how much you need to attend that school.
And that's a great point. It is never appropriate to ask a student tour guide about their financial aid, merit, need-based, nothing. Like,
Yes.
not, you can talk about politics with them. I don't care about that. Like, money is off the table. Like, because as Shannon said, like, it's so different for every student. And
Yeah.
it's awkward. Like, there's this adult, typically it's a parent asking this like
Yeah.
18-year-old kid, what's your financial aid pack? Like, just don't
Yeah.
do that, because you're going to get the wrong information. Not because they're giving the wrong, but just as you pointed out. So no
It's so
financial.
personal. Yeah. Talk to the financial aid office if you have questions. They're happy to answer it. Don't talk to the 18-year-old tour guide. I think that's a
Exactly.
good rule of thumb. Now, actually, speaking of money, money might be one reason why you can't actually visit a college. And there could be scheduling reasons, all sorts of reasons why you might not actually be able to make a visit to campus, especially if you're looking at colleges or thinking about colleges that are far away from your home. Are there alternatives to doing an actual on-campus formal college visit with the info session and the tour?
Yeah, definitely. And there are a few ways to think about this. So the like not visiting at all option. I mean, the one of the great things that came from COVID are virtual visits. There's something called U Visit on a lot of campuses, where basically this team came in and did like 360 cameras. A lot of campuses are using that now. So whether it's run by their admissions office or kind of farmed out, but still approved by their admissions office, those virtual tours, and those are on the websites. In fact, I just signed up. We'll be in Boston in a few weeks, and so I just signed up for some tours. And you like it says, hey, you're signing up for an in-person. If you want a virtual, here's the link. So on their visit pages, usually virtual. I hate this, but social media, often they do like their own student-led tours or like student takeover.
Yeah.
Here's my dorm. That can be a really great way to visit. Um, just talking with an admissions counselor, calling, they might come to your school, talking with them there. Those can be great options. In terms of visiting, but not formal visits, I think some creative ways to explore campuses are through sort of natural, like go to a sporting event or go see a performance, a play, a musical. Go, like if you have a soccer game on a college campus, like walk around afterwards
Yeah.
and just check it out. Just wandering campuses, I think there's some benefit to that as well.
Completely, yeah. And what about for our seniors out there specifically? What do you think is we kind of talked about when the best time to visit is, but if you're a senior, should you be taking one of the sort of regular info session campus tour visits, or at this point, should you be waiting till like an accepted student day? Are there differences between those two types of visits, and which is better?
I would find the itineraries for both. You can usually reach out or check online to see if they have them posted. They're different, right? So one is a campus tour. You might be able to visit a class on that traditional visit day information session. They may have specific tours for seniors. An admitted student day, it's probably going to be tons and tons and tons of people, which is neither good nor bad, just fact. You'll be surrounded by a lot of people. You may get to meet other admitted students, and that can be really exciting. You may get to sit in on a class or a mock class or something like that, but it's probably going to be different than the opportunities offered on a day-to-day. So I think the timing of it might make a difference, and also just what your personal preferences are. But check those itineraries and see what's different. You probably don't need to do both, but you might have different opportunities.
Totally. And those accepted student days, I feel like they're fun because this is the point where you've tried to kind of woo the college with your application. Now they're trying to woo you to get you to visit. So they're pulling out all the stops for you on those visits.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, practically speaking, how do you actually schedule a college visit?
Great question. Usually on their website. So typically go to the admissions page. There's usually a like visit now. I definitely
Mhm.
recommend scheduling. One, you want to get that visit tracked so that they can take that into consideration if that's something that they track during the admissions process,
Mhm.
can be beneficial to you. And also that way, if they have restrictions on visits, you're not missing out on like you don't show up and expect a tour and not have one. So just make sure you schedule that visit on their website.
Definitely. And I'm so glad that you mentioned making sure you've got it officially on the schedule. They might track it, and that could be beneficial to you in the admissions process. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And can a visit actually help your chances of admission?
Yeah, so some schools do track demonstrated interest, and a visit can be the best way to demonstrate your interest.
Mhm.
I think the short answer is that a visit is never going to hurt you. Even if they don't track interest, you are now a more informed buyer. Like I hate to use that
Mhm.
term, but you're making a more informed decision. You're making a more confident decision. You're going to write a better supplement essay on what you experienced on that college campus. Again, I go back to like you would never buy a house or a car without having some level of experience with it.
Yeah.
So there can be it can give you some points, so to speak, in the
Yeah.
application process, but realistically, it's never going to hurt you. And if you live close by to a college campus, I expect that you would visit. If you're far away, do what you can to engage, but visiting is never going to hurt.
For sure. And I personally, as the money person, I love that you refer to the students and the families as the buyers and being an informed buyer and doing whatever you can, whether it's an on-campus visit or a virtual visit, to get more informed, I think is the best way to approach this process altogether. So thank
Yeah.
you so much for all of your tips, Serena. I hope
Yeah.
everybody gets out there, get on the road or get on your computer, do those visits. Because, I think sometimes we get wrapped up in sort of the stressful parts of the college application process. This part is fun,
Yeah.
right?
Totally. Yeah. Well, safe travels, everyone. Enjoy your visits. And thanks so much for having me, Shannon.
Oh, thank you, Serena. And folks, please stick around through the break. We will be right back and we will be talking about the FAFSA rollout, one of my favorite topics. So stay tuned.